Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Monday, June 5th, 2023 Board of Commissioners meeting. I do apologize. We're a few minutes behind. We ran late on our budget work session and needed a few minutes before we jumped into the meeting, so I do apologize for that. First order of business this evening is the invocation and pledge of allegiance. As always, if there's someone in the audience that would like to deliver an invocation and lead us in a pledge of allegiance, you're welcome to come forward. Seeing that no one is jumping up for that occasion, Commissioner Owen Etheridge, would you like to do that for us this evening?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
Let us pray. Our most kind and gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us to live in this great country that we live in, especially Currituck County. Father, we know the many blessings that you have bestowed upon us in this community. Father, we ask you to give us discernment this evening as we go through the issues facing our county. It's tough times right now, but Father, we know with your guidance and help and inspiration, we'll do what's best for the citizens of Currituck. All these blessings we ask in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Owen. All right, next up, we have our ethics awareness and conflict of interest reminder from the county attorney.
Pursuant to GS 153A-44, a commissioner has a duty to vote on matters coming before the board, but may be excused from voting on issues involving the commissioner's own financial interests, official conduct, or on matters on which the commissioner is prohibited from voting under GS 14-234 or 160D-109. In accordance with Chapter 2, Division 3 of the Currituck County Code of Ordinances, it is the duty of every commissioner to avoid both conflicts of interest and appearances of conflict. Does any commissioner have any known conflict of interest or appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before the Board of Commissioners in this meeting? If so, please identify the conflict or appearance of conflict.
Anything this evening?
I'd like to mention my company in 2021 did some work for Jerry Old, and they have Newbridge on here. That being said, I don't believe on my QuickBooks, I went home today early from work to check. There was no work done in 2022 for Jerry Old. I do know I bid on a couple things, but we didn't win those. And in 2018 of August, I had to look on my cell phone at old previous pictures. I did a job at his house, which his wife hired me 58 months ago. So I want to disclose that I did work at his house almost 5 years ago, 2 months shy. So just to put that out there.
Okay, and thanks for disclosing that, but it says that that's a public hearing tonight, but it's actually not, and so that would not present a conflict of interest in that matter, but thanks for disclosing.
All
Okay.
right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up is an approval of the agenda. I'm going to make the motion to approve the agenda this evening with several changes. As the county attorney said, item number 1 under public hearings, PB 19-24, Newbridge Creek, will be moved to new business, and new business will be placed on the agenda just after the county attorney's report and before public hearings to discuss this. It is actually not a public hearing. Additionally, we're going to pull out of consent agenda one of the agenda items for Commissioner Travel. Some questions about that. And additionally, we will be removing PB 23-05, Currituck County request to amend the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 10, to exempt educational facilities from the maximum height requirements. That was advertised incorrectly, and we will have to re-advertise that and possibly have it reheard. We'll have the county attorney and the county manager taking that a little bit further, and that'll come back at a future meeting. So that is, I think, everything that we need this evening.
Second.
Thank you, sir. Any comments, questions?
I have a question.
Yes,
Is
sir.
PB 23-06, that's still in there, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, thank you all. First agenda item this evening, as always, is public comment. Public has 3 minutes to come up and talk about whatever's on their mind. We have a light system to let you know when that 3 minutes is up. The red light is, if you could please wrap up your comments at that time. The first person this evening I have signed up is James Mims. And I know you know the drill, James, but anyone that comes up this evening, please state your name and address for the record.
All right.
You,
James
sir?
Mims, 105 Chestnut. I want to address something that touched me personally, along with the constituents of this county. The shoe fit, so I wore it. In my opinion, we can never, ever tell constituents that if we don't like the tax rate when comparing to adjacent communities, we can pack our things and head that way. I would never ask the members of the board if they don't like how we feel, then they should resign. I ask that we remember who voted for you, and that my goal is not to make any of you not seek re-election. The goal is, from start to the very last day of your terms, to put the constituents first. I feel that there was better ways to prepare for times like these. Addressing the density years ago was an option and would have prevented developments to the liking of what we've seen recently. Board, we're making progress, but I smell another 500 homes right around the corner. I beg you, board, preserve traditional rural character. Focus on the long-term needs of your constituents and of your county, and to put the needs of the constituents first. I want to thank a commissioner personally and publicly. To thank the commissioner that spoke out at the previous meeting and expressed that countless constituents at the south end of the county genuinely did not want the 1-acre lots. Again, against what I've been asking. Thank you. Thank you for holding true to your position and the request of your constituents. That is what this is all about. Now, I haven't heard any of you mention anything about anyone stating they do not want the density decreased. Honestly, that's what this is about. Even if some wish to see an increase of density, we must look at the values and the history of what this county once was. We the people outnumber the developers in this county. I am a longtime resident of this county and I'm not going anywhere. We will not tolerate this irresponsible growth. We must continue to address the density, establish a minimum lot size according to our residents' requests, address inadequate infrastructure early, and ensure our generation and the generation to come go to safe schools, have adequate infrastructure, and go on to replace our place in this wonderful community we call home. After all, if inadequate public facilities wasn't of question, these developers wouldn't have brought an expert from Washington, D.C. to tell you what you needed to hear. Lastly, please don't be fooled. Expert testimony has been needed. Expert testimony is coming. This county is full of long-standing, freedom-fighting, and God-loving, hard-working American men and women. You may be in a tough position, and I believe for the most part, your feelings are authentic. But it would be a critical and terrible mistake to ever remove the right of the people of this county to come forward and express their frustrations, concerns, point of view, or even success through public comment. We allow the applicants countless time to express their need and want for these developments. Please don't eliminate the expression of public opinion, and please start making calls to the state reps to allow our opinions to be considered in these development requests. After all, isn't this what has been missing over the recent years? There's work to be done, but this is and always will be home, and the greatest community I could ever ask to raise my children in. As long as I can, I want to continue to stand here and fight and voice the concerns of my fellow brothers and sisters. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, next up, we have Lilius Morrison. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Lilius Morrison. I have the Harbinger Centre down in South Currituck. I want to also address the matter of the 40,000 plus square foot lots and its impact on the southern part of the county. I consider the southern, and so do many other people, that the southern part of the county has a very different character from the north. And it's a place full of small communities, Parker's Landing, Griggs Acres, Reggie Owens, Hickory Hill, many small communities and very well established here in South Currituck. I want to take a look at the kind of people who live in these communities. Many of them are retired people who want to downsize and have less time and have less landscaping. There are many contractors who have their headquarters here and who also build their homes here. And there are internet business people, there are government support people like teachers, EMS, firemen, and law officers. People like this are the heart and soul of the county and the heart and soul of South Currituck. If you pursue 40,000 square foot lots, such lots would be beyond the means of the good people I have just mentioned. Retirees who want to downsize, etc., would go down to Moorhead and Wilmington and so forth, but they are good local people. The same with contractors, and especially with government support people. Currituck County needs to look after its own. So, because in order to make things affordable and feasible to continue, that people of this character can be able to buy lots, I want to suggest to you, and I'm raising the question for your consideration, that Currituck south of Coinjock be designated a special zoning district, a specific zoning district, which would have its own rules and approaches. I will repeat, I'm requesting the commissioners to consider the possibility of designating Currituck south of Coinjock as a specific zoning district which can have diversity and different kinds of density. Thank you.
Thank you. I do not have anyone else signed up this evening. Is there anyone else that came in late that would like to speak to the Board of Commissioners this evening? All right, seeing none, I will close public comment. Next up is a Commissioner's report. I'll kick it off this evening and be fairly brief. Last week, we had a special meeting of the Board of Commissioners to discuss our budget and present that publicly. For those that maybe didn't watch that meeting, that is available on YouTube. And so I suggest if you have some time to take a moment and watch all that was discussed during the budget presentation. That budget is also available here at the county offices with a hard copy at the clerk's office. Prior to that, we had lot size discussion, and the two individuals that were just up here were both at that discussion. It was discussed quite extensively, and we will be coming back to that again as we were given quite a bit of information by our planning staff, and I do want to take a moment to thank them. They have they put a lot of thought and effort into giving us choices and helping us and anyone else who was here hopefully understand what that means. As we talk about, 1 acre lots, we thought about that, and ultimately, it's not for everyone. And that point was brought up this evening. And density is much more important than lot size. Going straight to 1 acre lots in several scenarios created more residential houses in the same setting versus changing the density, and that is the number of homes allowed on a piece of land. So we have more work to do on that before we move forward on exactly how we're going to approach slowing down some development here in the county and moving forward with the things that Mr. Mims has talked about extensively over the last several months. And one thing that was brought up this evening I want to address is public comment. Public comment is what we just had. That is a time for the public to comment on anything that's on their mind. That being said, what we are discussing is removing public comment from public hearings. Hearings are a different animal entirely. We sit as a judge panel at that time, and we can only consider evidence presented to us by competent experts, basically, and you have to tenure yourself as an expert, and there's several ways you can do that, and I won't go into that tonight, but public comment, public feelings about a particular hearing item is not something that we should be considering. We are not here to sit emotionally in that moment. We have to disassociate our personal feelings from it and deal with what is in front of us rather than deal with something that we may or may not like and voting that way. It is based on evidence. So that is what we were talking about removing as public comment, which you can't unhear things you've heard, and we're not supposed to have ex parte communications on those things. So I just wanted to clarify what Mr. Mims was talking about was public comment during a public hearing. And I think I'll start over here since the South was just brought up, and you guys are well represented down there, I have to say, by Commissioner Jarvis.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I've had a very...
Way down south. You're in the Mid-South. You're Middle Earth.
2023 is the year of the trail, and I had the incredible opportunity to go with our county manager, Ike McCree, and our assistant county manager, Rebecca Gay, to the opening and the rededication of Currituck Banks Trail and Boardwalk. It was very well attended. We had Secretary Weisner, we had the regional director, and many, many other people from many different agencies that make that property so incredible. We had a great tour by the Northern Site Steward, his name is Eric, and he did a great job of guiding us and telling us all about the new trails and the boardwalk itself. And it was a great day. We took the hike, not necessarily in the best shoes. I wasn't really expecting the hike in the cool weather, but we did take the 1.5-mile loop trail. And it was great, and I encourage you, if you've not been to that beautiful boardwalk in Corolla, it's hard to miss. It's right there before you make that sharp right turn toward the off-road area. There isn't a lot of parking, but there's enough for you to walk and enjoy that boardwalk as well as the trails. And if you happen to see a guy out there trimming trees, that might be my husband. He works for that agency part-time, and I'm proud of the work he's done. It was a great day for all involved. I also want to say thank you again to all of our staff that worked on the budget. It was a very readable and very digestible budget. I felt like for the first time since I've sat in this chair, I really got a handle on it. Of course, because it was so readable, it led me to have lots of questions, so I appreciate the patience that you gave me today when I asked those questions. And finally, I want to just reiterate what Chairman White said. I want to thank the planning staff for all that you did last week. I am a visual person, and your visual renderings of density and 1-acre lots was extremely helpful to me, and I just thank you so much for the work that you put in. So thank you.
All right, Commissioner Etheridge?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On Thursday, May the 25th, I attended a welcome reception hosted by the Library Board of Trustees for our new librarian here in the county, Erica Hill. Ms. Hill, we'd like to welcome you to Currituck County, and I'd like to invite our citizens to stop by the library and say hello to our new librarian. And while you're there, take advantage of the many things besides just books that are offered to our citizens. They have genealogy courses, and they also have a summer reading program for children in our area. On Thursday, June the 1st, I attended the Risk Group Board of Trustees meeting of the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. This is the group that provides our workers workmen's compensation and liability and property insurance, which we're a member of. As with any entity, the budget and the bottom line are always a concern. And one way to cut the costs is to have a safe working environment. To accomplish this, I'm excited to welcome Currituck County's new Risk Management Administrator, Charlie Chris. We look forward to Mr. Chris not only making Currituck County a good place to work, but also a safer place to work. Last but not least, I'd like to read a note from a citizen of Currituck County. Dear Samantha, Thank you for your time and your presentation about social service here in Currituck County. I'm sure I'm not the only one in the Citizens Academy that was touched to learn of just how dedicated each of you are to your positions here in the county. Y'all are the unsung heroes of our community, doing some of the most important work so quietly without praise. Bless each of you and thank you. You're all awesome. Donna Robertson. As you can see, we are certainly blessed to have a workforce that we can be proud of here in Currituck County. And I'd like to say thank you to all of our county employees who make Currituck County great.
Thank you. And now for the second half of the Lower Currituck Dynamic
Okay.
Duo.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, well, I'm going to touch on it. First of all, let me just, I got a couple things. I know the county has always been concerned about having health providers in the county or a place to go for medical needs or wellness checks. One thing we did a few years ago is we had the local health department reevaluate what they can offer, and we actually restructured that. I sit on the regional public health executive board, and at that time we discussed of bringing in 1 to 2 nurse practitioners that can provide services not only for our county employees to give them someplace close to go to, but it also is opening doors to all our citizens out there. What people may not be aware of is that the health department can actually act as your primary care provider. They accept all insurance that you have. They're not selective. If you have any insurance, they will accept it. They're also on a pay structure to whereas if you cannot afford the full services, there's a structure that they can help work with the financial obligation that you have. They can do any type of if you got a cold or an ailment or if you need stitches, you can go in there. You don't have to schedule an appointment. You can walk in. They can prescribe prescriptions. They can if you need an x-ray, they don't have an x-ray machine, but they can set you up to have an x-rays done. There's almost nothing that they can do that a local provider can't do. So I've talked to the county manager about getting some more information out via the Focus, our website, any way we can to let the citizens know that we have another provider. If you're sick or ill, you can walk in there and they will take you and take care of you. And I think that's great because I talked to the other surrounding counties. Nobody else has done that yet with their health departments. And we have gotten good reviews. The other county commissioners are asking me how we did it, how it's working, to give them some ideas to get other health providers in the county. So we were the first in our area to do that, and it's been successful. I just want the citizens to know it's there, use it. They will take you in, and again, I don't think we did a well enough job of explaining exactly what they can provide for you out there. So please, if you have need of a doctor, please go right on in there and they'll take care of you. Secondly, I ride down the road a lot and I know I kept counting at the county manager, but I see now with our new finance building across the road over here, I believe they're getting the fiber across the road now. We've been waiting forever, so that's going to be a nice blessing to get that up and rolling and get our finance department relocated and take care of some additional services for our citizens. Lower Currituck, I grew up in Grandy, as you know, Selena and I kind of represent the lower end. And I will say Lower Currituck is a little unique. The further south you go, the quicker it starts tapering off, getting down to a fine point down there at the end down there. But you're right, the soil's different. It's full of sand. It perks great. The land is limited down there. So we are actually, if you think about it, Lower Currituck is an island because the Coinjock Canal cuts us right off. And years ago when the bridge was hit, we were stuck on an island. I was going to high school back then. So anyways, I do agree that Lower Currituck has a different uniqueness to it that I think it needs to be discussed amongst us commissioners going forward. So Thanks for the comments that came up earlier. And lastly, the fire departments, we're getting busy out there. We've had discussions, there's been brush fires, accidents. Lower Currituck is getting ready to go through recertification here, I think by the end of this month. They're always looking for people to help them with anything. So if you want to get involved with your local fire departments, wherever it's at in the county, just communicate with them. They'd be glad to have you there. Help them any way you can. They're doing a service out there that many people don't know what it's like. Get paged out in the morning, your pager goes off, or weekends, you're at church, whatever, and you leave to go get in that apparatus and help the citizens out there. So it's a viable, very proud of our first responders, everyone out there. So that's pretty much all I had for this evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, sir. Commissioner Beaumont.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First on the list, to kind of tag onto Commissioner Jarvis's comments, it was at least my 8th budget cycle, I'm guessing. Probably the most clearly understood piece of work that the county's produced. And I kind of know what's going on, but I would encourage every resident in the county, download a copy of the budget. It's available on the county's website. It explains what every department does. It explains what their goals are. It goes through what they accomplished this past year, what they're hoping to get next year. That is a great, if you want to get an idea where we as a county are headed, those departments are a great indicator as far as what the focus has become. So that's number one. Number two, I had the pleasure of, ordinarily it would have been a ribbon cutting, but it was the Fire Training Center in Corolla at Pine Island. So it was a hose unscrewing. Anyway, it was kind of cool. Number one, it was a great thing to behold, because the challenge with our firefighters that are full-time and professionals within the county are that if they are sent to training, typically they're on the clock, but that means they're not doing their job and what we need them to be. So they're out of the area for training, and we're missing a resource. What we have now is the ability to go over and do training very expeditiously, very cost-effectively, and it's actually a brilliant idea. So much so that many of the departments that we already have mutual assistance agreements with, that'd be Duck and Southern Shores, Nags Head, Kitty Hawk, et cetera, have expressed an interest to be able to come over and train at the facility as well. So there's a lot of cool things incorporated in it. I look forward to seeing it engaged and in action, but it's an exciting feature. So if anyone's driving north in Pine Island and you see the containers all behind the fire station, that's what that is. And I am grateful that it's either A, not red, B, blazing orange. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
It's a nice blue. Yeah. Kevin?
All right. To touch on that, like I said, the budget, the planning staff with all the stuff that we had the last presentation, that was pretty awesome. Kevin, that your crew, you and Donna, I know, I'm not going to name everybody else, but I know you and Donna did most of the stuff that night. That was very, very educational, and like I said, it's awesome. To touch on what Commissioner Beaumont said about the training, it's kind of the same thing like the public safety building, the new public safety building in COA. We have the BLET Academy there. There's so much training done here locally, the dollars that we save from having to send a guy to Fayetteville to stay in a hotel, $100 a night, and all that stuff when it's all locally here. So, yeah, it costs a lot of money to build those buildings, but in the long run, you're going to save the dollar for the taxpayer and everybody. So, very, very big. Accidents on the road. People need to drive like they have some sense. If they don't, turn your driver's license in. 2021, we had roughly 300 accidents in Currituck County. That's counting the county, Knott's Island County. 2022, over 1,300. And my guess, the rate that it's on now, it'll probably be 1,500 in 2023. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that's one thing I'm wrong on. I hope it's less than 1,000. But be careful. We've had some horrendous motorcycle wrecks. You know, I mean, just be careful. First responders, as well as dispatch, when they call, they're the first responders that you deal with. They do an awesome job. The sheriff's office, the highway patrol, if we're not full staffed highway patrol, we might be one shy. So that's a unique experience because we haven't had that in a long time. So kudos to those guys. And like I got a lot of phone calls when we did some different saturation patrols in the county of using other agencies, which we sometimes assist them as well when they do, like in problem areas where we have a lot of traffic complaints. We might have like what they call saturation patrols. The Governor's Highway Safety Program that we participate in 100% reporting. In that we get stuff free, the radar trailers, the different stuff you see. It depends on what it is that year that you'll get points from doing the different things. So it was funny because the phone calls I received from Manio PD cars on the south end, Camden on the north end, and I just told people we had to rent cars, but that was obviously a joke. But no, I mean, like I said, where we did the saturation patrols, and it's not just to write tickets to generate revenue, as people say, it's to address the problem areas where 71% of the calls to Owen's wife at dispatch are traffic related. 71% of the calls that they take are traffic related. So that's why you see a lot of blue lights on 168, 158, 12, and Knott's Island. So that's pretty much it for tonight. The budget stuff has been a nightmare. Like I said, this is my sixth one I think I've sat on. Some things I don't agree with on it, and like I said, we'll go down that road as we sit there and not argue, but maybe question. But like I said, the county manager, Ike, y'all have done a good job on putting that packet together. That's the best one I've ever seen to break it down of dollar for dollar, ounce for ounce. And one thing here, and I say it all the time, and I'm going to say it more tactfully because James brought up something, was, and I love James, not, like I said, like a brother, but the tax rate, we are very fortunate with what we pay here for the services and the quality of life that we have here. So, not everything you read on social media is true. When people go on social media and complain about some stuff, it's a great place to live. Nobody wants to pay more taxes. I don't. Not a soul up here sitting here wants to pay more. But sometimes it's part of life. Everything costs more. Go buy milk. Go buy eggs. Go buy gas. All that stuff, like you said, it's a tough situation and it's tough to chew on. But like you said, it is what it is. And, that book that the staff put together is awesome. If you can't look at that and see the breakdown, and it's available to anyone here in the county. If you want it, get it, download it, get a copy of it. Not every citizen, the 25,000 plus people, because that would cost some money and might have to go up a penny more. But like I said, they do a good job, and the whole situation it's not easy. And I mean, like I said, the amount of hours that's put into it by staff, by us, by everyone to put it together, the department heads. I mean, like I said, a lot goes into, and not everybody's requesting of. One of the best ones ever was the EMS bus that we had for the longest time, which we still own. That was a grant. It was free. The first time I was a commissioner, I got so many phone calls about that bus, of the county's wasting tax dollars on a bus that we paid nothing for. It was free. We had to put the stickers on it. So like I said, and it's used 11 years later today that it was a free one. I probably had a dozen phone calls complaining of, I can't believe y'all bought that bus. Well, it was free. So like I said, do your research. Great place to live. And I'll turn it over to Owen.
Okay. The always bright and sunshiny Owen Etheridge.
It's summertime.
Right. Yeah, I got the pink shirt on with you.
Didn't feel like that yesterday.
That's the great thing about living here. One day winter, the next day summer.
Like it today, wait till tomorrow.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be brief. As Paul mentioned, the training, that's just a sign that we have dedicated people, be it paid or volunteers, who are trying to provide the most professional service they can to serve the citizens. I won't say how many budgets I've been part of, though this is 21, but this is the best presentation. The narrative part of it was something that we've not seen before, and I was glad to see that because it does break down each department and talks about, as it's already been mentioned, several things. about their accomplishments and what they want to look forward in the future. We do have a lean county government. I mean, we don't have, I've asked people, if you know where there's fat, please suggest it to us, because 7 of us sitting up here, we don't know everything. And if citizens can offer us advice, I'm willing to listen, as the other 6 are. But it's not, we don't have all the answers, and we look for help from citizens. Lastly, traffic issues. We know where we're going when we're on the road here. A lot of people don't know where they're going. And I've said this before, there's farm equipment out here on these highways. And I have seen more close calls in the last 3 weeks than I have seen in my lifetime from people just got to get by a farm tractor. And I'll give you an example. Where we turn to go up to our farm shop is a slight curve. Last week, there was about 8 cars backed up behind us. Flashers going on the tractor, and I was in the pickup, and some idiot pulled out from 8 cars back and comes blaring by. Didn't see the car coming, and the car coming had to run off the road to keep from hitting him head on. So use a little caution, and if you're running that late, like I've said, leave home 10 minutes earlier. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. All right, next up, we have the county manager's report. Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Following up on Vice Chair Jarvis's comments on the rededication of the trail at Currituck Outer Banks, that was a very good program, and it was also nice that we had some FaceTime with Secretary Beiser of she's Secretary of the Department of Environmental Quality for North Carolina. Her father, Owen, is actually Richard Self, a longtime former county manager in Johnston County, so she was commiserating with us as a county. But it was good to have some FaceTime with her to talk about some issues affecting our county, in particular some wastewater concerns that we have. Also, the executive director of the Division of Coastal Management was there. It was good to be able to have some time with him also, and have him visiting us on the far northeast reaches of his jurisdiction, and encourage both of them, of course, to come back often. The other thing I'd like to point out is the board directed that we open at least one facility. We'd like to open more at Historic Corolla Park on the weekends. Beginning Memorial Weekend, we were able to do that by hiring some folks, and also by some of our own county staff willing to step up and take an additional job on the weekends to at least get the Maritime Museum open. It was open again last Memorial Weekend, and this past weekend, 2,393 people in those 2 weekends have gone through the Maritime Museum for an average of almost 500 people per day that it's been open. So it's surprised us about how well and it's been visited, and how much people are enjoying it, including our staff, who are really enjoying being there in those facilities and among our visitors. So it's been a good program so far, and we hope it continues to be successful throughout the rest of the summer. We will continue this through, I guess, the first weekend in October. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, sir. County attorney?
No report.
All right. That's easy. Thank you. Right, you win. All right, next up this evening is new business, and as I said earlier, we are pulling PB 19-24 New Bridge Creek. They have a request to determine material change in facts or circumstances of a preliminary plat special use permit denial involving a 37-lot residential subdivision. And this one's a little bit different, so I'm going to let the county attorney do a little explaining before we
Yes.
jump into it.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So there's a legal concept derived from case law known as res judicata, which I know is a funny, silly word, but that means a thing adjudicated. Res judicata applies to judicial decisions as well as quasi-judicial decisions, which, as you all know, you hear. So this matter before you tonight involves New Bridge Creek. This was before the board in 2020. It was for a low-density residential subdivision of 37 lots. That was actually, it was denied on August 17th, 2020. And I'll read for you why it was denied. The board finds that the application is complete, but the application should be denied and hereby is denied for failure to meet the use permit review standards of the Unified Development Ordinance, specifically in the absence of testimony that it will not injure adjoining or abutting property. Not enough evidence was provided that neighboring properties would not be injured by the development. So this was actually denied back in 2020. Now, there's an exception to res judicata, which basically means you cannot rehear something that has been denied. But there's an exception to that. If you find that there's been a material change in the ordinance standards, or in this case, what they are going to argue or to present is that there maybe a material change in conditions or a material change in their overall application. And so before you tonight, you are not hearing this matter. You are not hearing the special use permit. That's going to be for another day if you decide tonight that you will hear it. Tonight, you are just deciding whether you will hear this matter. And what determines that is if there's been a material change that goes directly to why it was denied in the first place, which again was that there was no evidence presented that pertained to property values and whether it injured adjoining property values. So it's my understanding that we have Bill Brumsey here representing the applicant, and then I'll turn it over to him. But if you have any questions, I know that sounds a little complicated.
So what constitutes a change? In this case, they have presented a different way out for the neighborhood.
Right.
But it's basically 37 lots, half-acre lots, or, well, looks like about a little over, closer to an acre, 3/4 of an acre, something like that. Is that substantial just by changing the layout of the roads and the lot structure? I mean, is it?
So I think I'll let them actually answer that because I think they have a chart that shows what changes they've made. And remember, it has to be a material change and it has to go directly to why it was denied in the first place. So there needs to be some kind of material change regarding the property value review standard and whether it injures or doesn't injure adjoining property values.
Okay. Good evening, sir.
Hi, how are you all? I'm Bill Brumsey, attorney for the property owner, not applicant yet, but property owner, New Bridge Creek LLC. And I'm going to call Mark Bissell to tell you guys about some of those questions that you just had, Commissioner White, and we'll answer any questions and explain what we feel like or is a material change in the application. So, Mark, if you'll state your name and address.
Yes, Mark Bissell, 3512 North Croatan Highway, Kitty Hawk, North Carolina.
And what's your education?
I have a degree in civil engineering from Duke University.
And what's your experience? Tell us a little bit about your work, your experience here in
I've been
Currituck
involved
County.
in development, design, and permitting and construction for in Currituck County going, I think this is my 39th year of practicing here.
Okay. And you've appeared before this board numerous
And
occasions.
I have.
I'll tend to Mark Bissell as an expert in civil engineering and site design at this time. All right, have you reviewed the 2020 subdivision plan that the county attorney brought up that was denied
Yes, I
in
have.
August of 2020?
I've reviewed it.
And you didn't prepare that plan?
No.
But you have reviewed it?
I have.
All right. Have you prepared a different subdivision plan for New Bridge Creek?
I have.
Have you done a comparison of the old plan for New Bridge Creek with your new subdivision plan?
I have.
If you'll explain the differences between the old plan and the new plan for the board.
Sure. We did a side-by-side comparison of the two plans. I'm sure that's in your package. Is that available to show on the screen as well?
That is
I
not.
don't think it is, but it's on page, I think, 4. Or that's the plat, and then
Side by side.
that's the
plan.
drawings, and then the words are on
The
page
description is on
5.
page 5.
So if you look at the subdivision on the left, which is the one that was denied, it's more of a traditional grid subdivision. There's a minimal amount of open space. The lots back right up to the adjacent property. There's no buffering provided. The new plan provides a 50-foot vegetative buffer to that adjacent property. It provides almost 6 additional acres of open space in the subdivision. It moves a lot of the building sites out of the floodplain. It provides a street and lot design that more conforms with the land, so it's really a true conservation subdivision. This would also have paved roads that we think would actually, all the way to the adjacent property, that we think would actually enhance the value of those existing developed lots next door. They would also be well buffered from this development. Other changes are that we provide convenient mail areas, we provide public gathering areas, don't necessarily address the issue specifically of value to adjacent property, but we think that this would actually, these lots will be more valuable because of the design, because of the conservation nature, because of the open spaces and the amenities, which will indirectly then increase the value of the adjacent property.
All right, so based on your experience and training, is this a material change in the subdivision plan?
This is absolutely a material change, very substantially different than what was presented previously.
All right, those are all my questions, and I'll open it to the board for any questions from Mr. Bissell.
Mr. Chair, okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Mr. Bissell, go ahead. I want you to go back again. You talked about you did some lots that took some areas out of the flood zone. If I recall the last meeting about this, there was some major concerns about flooding in that area, and was there studies done and how that would probably affect some of the adjoining properties? Is this drawing, you said, took some of the properties out of flood zones, or
Yeah,
has this addressed any of the runoff that could go into the adjacent properties? Does this address that?
Well, this runoff would all be directed to the receiving water body, so there would be, in my opinion, no impact on adjacent properties from runoff. We have moved lots up the hill, we've moved them onto higher elevation, we've increased the size of the stormwater BMPs that are available, and then all that runoff is directed to the creek.
Okay.
Wasn't this area originally 10-acre lots, and the properties around it were sold as 10-acre lots? And I think that was part of the issue. I can't speak for anybody else, but that was part of the issue before, is the people that bought this area in and around it were, I guess, led to believe that these were 10-acre lots. And there's traffic that will be generated by it. I know in the original report, the traffic information estimated 370 trips a day. I don't know if it's the same type of thing, but if I live on that dirt road end there, coming off of that, that's a lot of trips by my house each day. And that's one of the concerns that I have. I think when you believe that you're buying into an area of 10-acre lots and suddenly it's chopped up into something smaller, I think it does injure the value of what you thought you bought.
Mr. Chairman, if I could ask, and this may go to you, Megan. The issue is this substantively different than the one that was denied?
Correct.
Correct.
That is the
Not
only
whether or not we're
issue.
going to approve this one or disapprove this one.
Correct.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
The only question before you tonight is whether there is a material substantial change from what was heard back in 2020, which was, that denial was based on the property values.
So if we find that there is material and substantive change, this would then give them the right to come forward
And
reapply.
reapply. Yes, that's correct.
With the understanding it could pass or be denied again.
That's correct.
Correct, and that, from the owner's perspective, we need to address this up front rather than at the tail end before incurring large expenses and resources to get to that point. So we need to cross this hurdle first, and then, as you all have
I don't think we can. I don't think we can vote on the merits of this project, thumbs up, thumbs down. I just, that's not,
Not the plan, just as to whether this is a material change.
got it.
Right.
Okay, we're all in agreement.
Yeah, we're not asking for approval of the plan, just that it's a material change.
I guess I have one more question. So on the side-by-side changes that you have on page 5 of the agenda packet, maybe it's just me being obtuse and confused. I just want to know what the difference is when you say before there was 50% of the buildings in the floodplain, but now there's 50% out of the floodplain. Isn't that kind of the same thing?
There were more than 50% in before, and now there are more than 50% out.
Okay. All right.
So over half of them were in a floodplain, and now more than half of them are out of a floodplain. Is that-
All right.
Did I?
To put that in more lay terms.
What's the, I do have a question on far as what Commissioner Jarvis said, which she brought up a point. Far as when you come in, is the main entrance where they redid the building, which it's, Royal Realty, is that, would that be the main entrance where they would come in? So if they came in, if this was, and I mean, I know tonight we're only talking about if it's a different plan, but would they come in, the property's to the right, correct? The 10-acre homes are to the left?
Yeah.
How many 10-acre homes are, is it 7 or 5 that abut up to it? Or, I mean, I know all of them aren't beside it, but I mean, like, there's one.
One,
But how many
There's only
total was
one
there?
that abuts it,
There's one that abuts it, but there's,
and I think that,
down that road, is it 3 or 5?
3.
It's in that, I don't know the
I think it's
exact
I don't
5.
remember either.
but it's in that range.
It's, okay.
It's,
That's all, I just was curious. I was curious on far as, now, when, I know before, this would, and I'm just asking this question. So when they come in by Royal Realty, that's a dirt road.
right.
Shell sand, and some of it might be crush and run and further down. Would they come in by Royal Realty on this plan compared to last plan, is that a paved road to NCDOT specs, or is that a dirt road or a?
So that road under this plan would be paved to NCDOT standards, as would the road that you turn onto the left to go back to the 3 or 4 or 5 existing lots back in there. So it would be paved to that property line.
I believe that was a point of discussion in 2020 when this came up. It was
It was
going to improve road conditions.
It was or wasn't? I know they,
Right.
Yeah, the lady that lives
Yeah,
adjoining
the
to it
abutted
was
property.
upset because she said, you know, I have to drive through a minefield to get to my house now.
Right.
And this would alleviate that issue.
Yeah,
Lena,
currently,
there's not, no traffic will go past these people's homes.
Go behind them.
no, it'll go
The
completely
traffic that they'll
different.
incur as they exit.
Yeah, they will.
it won't, this will not reach those homes, this access.
They're going right, the homes are going left, north, I guess I should say.
Currently, that driveway that you're talking about is just to the north of the Royal Realty building. This access will be just to the south of that building.
Close to the creek?
Closer, yes, farther south, closer to New Bridge Creek.
So would they come out the same, or?
Well, I think is that one gonna be improved as well, Mark? The northern entrance?
I think we're only envisioning one
Right. Yeah,
access.
so instead of going
We'd look-
on that dirt path, they would then come out this new paved DOT standard road.
Okay.
We looked at doing two accesses, but it didn't meet the separation requirements.
So while that driveway will still be in place, it's not gonna be paved like this second southern access point will be.
Okay.
The 50-foot buffer between the adjoining property was not in the first plan. And I think that gives some basis for substantial change. What type of vegetative buffer are we talking about, though?
The buffer hasn't been designed yet, but I would envision that it would be something like a type B tree buffer.
Okay.
What were the lot sizes the first time? They were right around, are they, the lot size is smaller, or was it 40,000 the first time, and they're like 30-some now, or was it, I'm
right.
trying to remember.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Megan, you said it was denied because the evidence did not provide that it would injure the neighboring property.
Correct.
And for us to hear it, they have to prove that that's changed?
That there is, in their plan, there's a change that addresses that, or they'll provide testimony that will be sufficient. I think what would be helpful for the board here is what specifically is in this new plan that goes directly to that review standard. That would be
That's what I
change.
want to hear.
I think, like for example, what Commissioner Etheridge just mentioned about the 50-foot vegetative buffer. What other changes, if there are any, go directly to that
Yeah,
point?
that's all I really want to hear is what changes are you presenting that are going to address the concerns of the adjacent property values?
Right.
That's all.
So the main change is the 50-foot vegetative buffer. And we also know that stormwater management was a concern, so we are proposing enhanced stormwater management on this proposal.
And that buffer was not part of the original plan?
No, the
is
lot's
that-
butted right up to the
Yeah, the
adjacent
lot's
property.
butted right up to that property owner, and this one I had to watch on a video. I wasn't here for the meeting, so this one
Well, that's
sticks
the one,
out.
okay.
So I had to come in and be the deciding vote back then. And it seems the other plan didn't have really any stormwater.
Or
And
buffers.
you've captured, if you proceeded with this plan, 2 areas to capture water.
The paved roads, I think, was another thing, too.
Yeah.
Well, I think
Looking on the old and the new.
concern, yeah, for the adjacent properties, I think was the drainage and the
That
buffer.
drainage was a big point of discussion.
And the
Yeah.
buffer too.
Yeah, drainage was a big point of discussion in the buffer.
Which the other one didn't have stormwater because it was 10 acre lots. And it didn't have to follow
Well, they were 1 acre
oh,
lots.
excuse me, I'm sorry. The other ones were 10 acre lots. These, yeah, you didn't have a good stormwater plan for the first one, so.
But these were
Okay.
originally 10-acre lots
Yes.
also.
They were, and then they cut them down.
But that's basically, the original property had 10 acre lots, but that's not something we're really considering here tonight. The question is whether or not they have changed this.
Yes.
Yeah, and then it allows them to come back for a potential rezoning.
Right, which you're not hearing the actual merits of the case tonight, just whether there's a substantial change.
So if this board determines there is substantial change, the applicant still may or may not move forward. He may decide not to move forward anyways, or he may decide to move forward.
Correct.
It's not a guarantee he's gonna come before us, but.
Correct.
Coming. Okay. Any other questions of the applicant? All right.
No, Mr. Chairman, I will state, based on, if we're supposed to see if there's any substantial change regarding that particular item of adjacent property values, there's obviously a couple changes here that address that, so there are some changes that would address that. So, I mean, I would say that I see some changes here that would allow them, that I would agree there are changes that addresses those to allow if the applicant wants to reapply, I mean, I see that. I'll make a motion to allow that at this time,
Okay.
because I should see the changes there.
Second.
One second. Any further discussion?
I think the county, Megan was going to say something?
Yeah,
Okay.
No. Did I do
All
something
right,
wrong?
no further discussion. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right. Carries. Thank you all. We'll see you when we see you again. All right. Next up, as I said, we're not going to be hearing the height requirements this evening, so we'll be moving on to PB 23-06, Currituck County, under public hearings, a request to amend the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 1, 3, 4, 5, and 10 to remove Currituck Station Plan Development Zoning District and Subdistrict standards and definitions intended for that district. And we have Mr. Kemp up this evening.
All right. Thank you, Chairman, Vice Chair, members of the Commission. As you just heard, this is a text amendment that would remove the Currituck Station zoning and its sub-districts from the UDO. Just to give you a little background, Board of Commissioners approved this zoning district, the PDCS, and associated sub-districts in June 15th, 2020. What this text amendment would do, it would do three things, really. It would remove the district from Chapter 3, so where it identifies all the base zoning districts, that would be removed. Secondly, it would remove the zoning district from the summary use tables, both the principal and accessory use. And third, it would remove the definition of step back and vernacular architecture from the definition section. And I'll go on this next slide here and go over with you the specifics for the section. So first, in section 1.5.2, it just removes a reference to the Moyoc Megasite Master Plan. It's as simple as that. Chapter 3, as I mentioned, it just removes the PDCS zoning district, takes all references to it out, and that's pretty simple. Chapter 4, it does two things. It removes the PDCS from the principal and accessory use tables. The way the use tables are set up now, there's one that covers the primary zoning districts, and there's a separate table for the planned developments. Because we're removing this one, we're also taking that opportunity to consolidate the use tables into one. So the PDM, PDR, and PDO would all be included, would be moved to the main summary use table. It just makes it cleaner, and we use this as an opportunity to do that. In Chapter 5, the PDCS is removed from the following sections: the alternative parking plans, fences and walls, exterior lighting, internal street connections, and non-residential design standards. Those are just all the places where it is mentioned. And lastly, as I said in Chapter 10, taking out the definition of step back and vernacular architecture. I'm sure you're familiar with, here are the 7 standards that may be considered when reviewing a text amendment. The Imagine Currituck does recognize the Moyoc Megasite or Currituck Station and identifies it in the G3 mixed-use centers and corridors. There are 2 relevant goals and policies that could be considered. The first is Land Use Goal Policy 1, which encourages development at appropriate densities for the location and considers factors such as adequate infrastructure and soils, and compatibility and proximity to existing and planned county services. And the second is Land Use Policy 1.1, which speaks to the land use map being a guide for decision makings, but not the only thing considered. So the planning board reviewed this and recommended approval by a 6-0 vote. They felt it was consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of Imagine Currituck, and it was not in conflict with the UDO or County Code of Ordinances. They stated that it addresses a changing condition in the Moyock area where the board may continue to evaluate the conditions and development patterns up there. Staff also recommended approval of this text amendment and stated that, even though you are removing the PDCS designation, it does not prohibit any of the property owners included in that from developing their property with existing zoning districts. And with that, I will stand by for any questions.
Just as a point of, so this gave them the right to come in and apply to change the zoning on their property originally.
Correct.
So
If
there
they
was
were
a-
in that geographical area, they could come in and change it to that planned development Currituck Station zoning.
Okay.
What will it be zoned? I mean, what is the zoning for the majority of this
Zoning,
area now?
AGB.
Agriculture?
A majority of it is agriculture, yes.
Not all of it though, but most of it.
There are small portions along the highway that have GB zoning, but a
Okay.
majority of it, and there may be a few other zonings, but a large majority of the 3,000 acres was agriculture.
The PDR, and I was reading something on my sheet here as well as looking at I thought we did away with the PDR.
You did, it is a legacy district, so the ordinance addresses the PDRs that are currently in place, but no new PDRs. There's no new properties that will be zoned that way. But because there are existing PDR properties in the county, we include it in the use table.
So the PDR would still be available for that?
The PDR, no, it would be a legacy district, so.
That's what I was- all right.
Nothing changes on the PDR, it's still,
Alive.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Well, would someone feel like making a motion for this evening?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion.
This is a public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry, I
I
have-
stepped out, so.
I have that
have
right
you
here.
had that? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Well,
Chairman.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. I did not have anyone sign up to speak tonight for public comment. Is there anyone who would like to speak to this tonight in public comment? Seeing no one coming up, I will close the public comment period and now open the floor for a motion. Commissioner Etheridge?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we follow the presentation that Mr. Kemp, with all the explanations to remove Currituck Station from the ordinance.
Okay.
I
Thank you.
second that motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion from the board? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, carries unanimously. Thank you all. All right, next up is new business, item 1, board appointments. Item A, well, we have quite a few board appointments this evening. We can either handle these all as a slate if we would like to, or go through and call out individual members as we go through
No
these.
concerns, Mr. Chairman, I like to just do a slate.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve all the appointments on the agenda as a slate.
Can I ask
Have
one
something?
quick question? I was going to ask one quick question before we did that.
Further discussion?
It's still available for, I know if somebody can still sit on 2 boards, correct?
Yes.
Where we changed that. I was just making sure that was fine because
Yeah.
there's a couple of people in here that are on other ones. So, all right, sorry. Go ahead, Commissioner Jarvis. I apologize.
Would you like to second her motion?
I'll second her motion. How about that?
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, next item is a consent agenda, and we pulled out the Commissioner Travel 4 discussion before moving into consent agenda. Commissioner McCord, I believe you had
That
some
was at
questions
my
about that?
request. Well, after the recent budget and all the cost and this and that, and this is not, the main reason why I asked that is, I don't know how much this trip will cost, but I know we've spent a lot of money on travel. I haven't spent hardly any money on travel, but that's why I brought that up. So, I know Raleigh's not that far, but I know, some of the other travel that we've had has been further. And and that's the main reason why I brought it up, was if we're sitting here trying to pinch pennies and cut stuff out of the budget, is it that much of a necessity for somebody to attend that? That's,
May I comment on that? And I know you might want to too. I just want to say that since I've been on this board, my trips to the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners Conventions have changed my focus, have changed things that we prioritize in this county. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. One is the opioid task force that I'm a part of. It was by my attending this conference last year in Cabarrus County, where I heard the keynote speaker, who was the author of a book called Raising Lazarus and Dope Sick, that talked about the opioid epidemic. I also heard from Johnny Carswell, who is a commissioner in one of our mountain counties, whose son was lost to an opioid overdose. And then we got briefed on how we are getting these settlements, what we can do with these settlements, and it's from that attendance that I came and met with our county manager and began to organize our task force, which has only met a few times, but in those 2 meetings that we have had have been extremely productive as to how we stop the death and destruction by opioids in our county. And I would say that that in itself is invaluable. I know that trips are not free, but I think the cost-benefit analysis of this, the benefits far outweigh the cost. And if we are going to move forward in this county and have ideas of what works in this state and what does not work in this state, this is a great place to network. This is a great place to get ideas. This is a great place to find information that works and doesn't work in our county. Another great idea that came 3 years ago when Commissioner Kitty Etheridge and I went, they did these presentations of what good happens in counties, and it's from there that this Operation Santa that we've done now for several years kind of was born. How we as commissioners can lobby and organize people to help our own. And that program has just benefited numerous children, numerous elderly, numerous families in this county. So I am advocating that we be allowed to go and network with people across the state to get more good ideas to come back to this county.
And I'll just comment everything that Selena said. I think it's very important that you network with fellow commissioners throughout the state. I know in the past, Owen's been real involved in the association years past. He was on the board of directors, I think. It is a good place to learn. And if we're going to cut travel, if you cut travel for people who go to other trainings, like the sheriff's office goes to travel some places, the clerk's office, different departments travel and go to conventions, and I think to say that that's going to help with the budget is very misleading. Thank you.
Okay. Any further thoughts?
like I said, I don't have an issue with probably local travel, but I do have an issue. I worked at the sheriff's office 20 years. I've never gotten a plane and flew somewhere. So this one per se, I'm just saying in the future, some of the ones when they're long distances away, I do have an issue with it.
Okay, well, we will cross that bridge when we come to it for future travel. I do believe there is something about if we're in our final year as commissioners, we don't travel or go to these types of things that we had talked about years ago when we actually, Kitty, it was you actually that implemented bringing up commissioner travel, which has been a good thing to discuss as we did tonight, why it's important for us to travel and go to places and the things that we do. And anyway, all right, that being said, do we need to vote on that separately since we pulled that out?
Or can we just add all three items?
I think you can just add them
Okay.
and just vote on them at the same time.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a motion to approve consent agenda items A, B, and C.
Thank you, sir. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. And with that, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.